Well, a very good evening, everybody. There you go. My phone's telling me I've gone live. Yes, I'm aware of that. Yes, very good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday evening. This new kind of 8 p.m. live slot seems to be working quite well, so we're certainly going to stick with it for the time being, particularly for the rest of 2024 at least. We'll give people a couple of minutes just to get in and just to check that everything is working as it should do. Yeah, look forward to having a good discussion with you over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. As I've put there in the chat, if you can correctly guess what this week's show title, What on Earth Was That, is referring to, then you get 5 Women's Football Chat points. Good evening to Oliver, who says the plucky underdog story of billionaire-run Fulham defying the odds against Royston Town. Not quite that, Oliver. You might have to have another guess on that. But yes, do get involved throughout the course of the evening on the live chat. I'll be checking that. I've also got available to me this evening my Twitter messages at WFootballChat. The DMs are open if you'd rather ask a question on there privately rather than putting it into the group chat. And I've got a couple of questions that's come through to me throughout the course of the day as well, so I'll be looking at those a little bit later on. So let's get ourselves started then with the news from the past 7 days. We're going to start with Sutton Coldfield Town, who have announced the appointment of Steve Benyon as manager of the women's first team. He's a UEFA A licensed coach, has worked with TNS, Shrewsbury Town, Walsall. And the chairman of Sutton Coldfield Town, Nick Thurston, has said, after a lengthy review and interview process, we are delighted that Steve has accepted the position as women's first team manager. Throughout the process, he demonstrated a really clear passion and understanding around the role, and is someone we feel can help continue to drive the women's section forward. For me and the club, it is important we have a club playing in the FAWNL, and we are excited to look at how we continue to support that both on and off the pitch. In terms of how Sutton Coldfield Town are currently doing in the FAWNL, at the moment they are 9th in Division 1 Midlands, currently 4 points above Solihull Moors, who have that 11th and spot in the relegation zone. Elsewhere then in the world of the FAWNL, a lot of postponements over the course of the weekend, as you might expect, mainly hitting the FA Cup, which means we've got a lot happening this weekend as well. But some important news that came out, it was actually last Thursday, right after the show, that Leafield Athletic have introduced a really important new protocol to their side moving forward, all around the mental health and well-being of the staff and the players. Essentially, there's a 4-minute video on the Leafield Athletic X account, so do go and watch it if you haven't already. It's about really encouraging the players, if they are struggling at any point, to just have a step back, take a little bit of time away from the game. But really, yeah, if you haven't yet been able to go and watch that video, then do, because it is a really important message and a great step that Leafield Athletic are doing. They're having a really good season both on the pitch and with things off the pitch as well. And other news, you may be aware of Lewis's campaign that they've had for a few years now about equal FA Cup and prize parity between the teams in the Women's FA Cup and in the Men's FA Cup. But Worcester City, Cheltenham Town and Dulwich Hamlet have also joined Lewis and AFC Sudbury in that campaign for equal FA Cup prize money. What they are campaigning for is, as I said, equal prize money for the men and the women. So winners in the women's second round receive just £8,000. Men's teams at the same stage, £75,000. So that is such a big difference in that. And again, there's a big statement out that you can look at on the Lewis website, but sorry, on the Lewis X account. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and just looking at the finances for the FA Cup, and it brings me nicely on, and I can see that Nick is in the live chat this evening. So good evening to you, Nick. He says, what impact could defeat in the FA Cup have on league performances? It's a difficult one to say. I think it depends very much on who you lose to in the FA Cup. But I'm going to bring out the most recent example here, which is Stourbridge last night losing on penalties to Kidderminster Harriers. Spoiler alert, I know we'll get onto that a little bit later on. The difference purely from a financial point of view, and we'll get on to what it could mean on the pitch at the minute, but in the second round at the minute, you get £8,000 if you win it, you get £2,000 if you lose it. So if you win in the second round, you effectively get £17,000 at least, because you obviously win in the second round, and then you're guaranteed £9,000 if you lose in the third round, because the third round is when we have that huge spike in the money going in. So £17,000 against £2,000, you're almost talking £9,000. It's eight and a half times the money for winning that game to losing it. So it can make a huge difference. And for the teams down, in Tier 5, Tier 6 that have made their way through, that could really change everything to do with the club. I think from a league point of view and how it can affect results going forward, if you've got a side who are struggling in the league anyway, and then you lose to a side a couple of tiers below you, there are two examples really from this round of the FA Cup. That's London Seaward losing to Brentford and Stourbridge losing to Kidderminster Harriers. It can have a real impact on the fixtures going forward. Now, fortunately, we're coming up to the Christmas break. There are some teams that is the league done for them between now and Christmas. So there is time to sort that out. It's not as though we're going to head straight into a very congested run-in, but there is a danger that a negative attitude starts to filter into the club, and what is already a very difficult season, when sometimes you are fighting hard against these sides, sometimes you are not, then it can be very difficult. And then when you lose to a side 2 tiers below you, then it can be made all the more difficult. Oliver says, Tash is an absolute heroine. I think she should be stifled in a corporate structure like Forest, but love to have her at the club. Yeah, I can see that. I think from a Leafield point of view, they've made a very good appointment. They're having a great season, and it could get a lot better in the second half of it. So let's then very quickly, because it's not going to take very long realistically, to go through the results from the past 7 days in the FAWNL. And the reason it's not going to take very long is because pretty much everybody was either had a week off or was in the Women's FA Cup. We have a grand total of 4 games to go through. So we'll race through those and get on to the FA Cup, and then look ahead to a crazy weekend of women's football coming up. We'll start then, no games in Tier 3. We'll start in Division 1 Midlands. 1 result, Solihull Moors 0, Notts County 5. A brace each for Jessie Knott and Lily Stevenson, and 1 for Laura Vine as well for Notts County. Notts 2-0 up by half time, and then 5-0 at the end. It doesn't mean an awful lot for the table. What it does mean is Notts County are back into the top half of that table. They are up to 5th above Boldmere St Michael's and Barnsley Women's, who of course didn't play. Boldmere St Michael's with a couple of games in hand on them though. So Leaford Athletic, we've mentioned them a lot, obviously still in second, level on points with Northampton, but behind on goal difference. Just one game as well in the north. Chorley 5, Norton Stockton Ancients 2. 2 for Saffron Newhouse, 1 each for Megan Parker, Faye Stanhope, Nicola Worthington. Norton Stockton Ancients had 2 for Bianca Owens, 1 in the 8th minute and 1 in the 91st minute. So pretty much, one either side of the game, one right at the start, one right at the end. North table, it just means that Chorley go above Middlesbrough. They missed the chance with that late goal from Bianca Owens to go up to second above Leeds, but they do have so Leeds do have a game in hand over Chorley. So they are now one of 3 teams on 22. Leeds United have a game in hand though, but Middlesbrough are only back on 21. Huddersfield Town have a game in hand and they are on 18. So you could be in a situation where the top 5 in Division 1 North at the halfway point of the season, which we are now at with 11 games played, are separated by just 1 point, which is going to be great for the back end of the season. And then you've got the top 5 separated by barely anything, and then Norton and Stockton Ancients in 6th are on 11 points. They're only 2 points above York City, who are down in 11th in the relegation zone. So there is a big split in Division 1 North at the top and the bottom, but everybody has something to fight for at the moment. And finally then, 2 games in Division 1 South East. Actonians 0, Real Bedford 1. Huge game towards the top of the table. Layla O'Brien coming off the substitutes bench, the super sub for Real Bedford, on in the 70th minute and then scoring in the 74th, making the only difference in that game. And Dulwich Hamlet 3, Chesham United 1. Goal for Chesham United, not on full time, but it's Gemma Fraser with the goal on her 200th appearance for the club. And for Dulwich Hamlet, it's Lily Price in the 38th minute, Aisha Swaby in the 46th minute after coming on at half time. But Tia Seal in the 43rd minute. So 2 at half time for Dulwich Hamlet and then 1 right at the start of the second half. Well, that means for the Southeast table, Dulwich Hamlet don't actually climb any places with their victory over Chesham, who stay in that kind of mini league in the bottom 3. But the move is at the top, Real Bedford beating Actonians and climbing above them, and with a game in hand. They are a point clear of Actonians and have a game in hand on them. Chatham Town have 2 in hand on Actonians. They are 3 points behind. And AFC Sudbury also with games in hand on Actonians and can also catch them. So plenty again in South East. It looks as though Division 1 North and Division 1 South East might be the leagues to really look at towards the back half of the season. What else have we got going on then in the live chat? As I said, do get involved throughout the course of the evening. Oliver says, would love to see Cheadle go up. Yes, I would. My concern if Cheadle go up is that rise then going to be too quick for the side to really... Are they going to have to go from Tier 5 and Tier 5 ground regulations and Tier 5 standard up to Tier 3 too quickly? It's a similar kind of situation with Real Bedford. We've seen it before, how Stourbridge went shooting up the pyramid. And they've been able to sustain themselves in Tier 3 for a couple of seasons now, which is obviously a very positive thing. But they've kind of, I think, found their level, and maybe Tier 3 can be a struggle for them at times. And so perhaps there is an argument to be said for getting into Tier 4. Yes, having a very good season, but really consolidating yourself there and then going for it again. So you will just have to see with that one what happens really. But yeah, back half of the season, I think there's so much. I think it may well go to Leeds in the end, but we'll just have to see what happens on that one, because there's so much that could happen over the course of the next few months. Interestingly, I've been looking at some of the fixtures that teams have got coming up, because what's incredible is that you might be able to see it on the board behind me, although I know it's not the clearest. Peterborough, for example, have played 11 games all season. They've got 2 league games before Christmas, that's 13. They've then got 2 the first couple of weeks of January because they're out of the FA Cup. And they could have 15 league games played by the middle of January and then only have 7 games left in the final 12, 14 weeks of the season. So the league have really front loaded the fixture list, which I totally get because we've seen how postponements can start to come through. But then at the same time, you're left with teams having to wait ages for fixtures that matter, filling it with friendlies just to keep the fixture list going and things like that. And then on the flip side of it, you have teams that have had games postponed or they've gone far in the cup so far this season, and then they're having to go Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday towards the back end of the season, i.e. Leeds last year, who were playing 2 fixtures a week for the last 4 weeks just to get them all in. So it's really a balance that's difficult to strike up. We haven't got these really good grounds for the most part. You know, we're not playing at Premier League stadiums. We don't have a load of ground staff that can work on it 24/7 and make sure that the pitches are playable. We are at the mercy of the weather a lot of the time. The north more than the south has been shown this weekend, and it's an interesting one. There is no perfect solution, and I always say this when we're looking at what can the FAWNL do, what can the FA do to kind of make the league a little bit better, because if there was a perfect solution, the perfect solution would have been done. So it's an interesting one. It'd be great to have discussion with the FA and know how these kind of decisions are made, and how is the fixture list put together. What can you do anything? The realistic way to make the fixtures happen more throughout winter would be, okay, who plays at a very good stadium, like Wolves playing at Telford, a Forest playing at City Ground, who plays on 3G, will get them at home throughout the winter. Of course, that doesn't work because then they've got to, if you're playing all their home games throughout winter, you're then away at the start and away at the end, and that's not particularly fair on the club or the fan base who want to try and watch them. So there is no perfect solution. Right, let's go and have a look then at the FA Cup, and I will move myself in and out of the way as we go through the FA Cup, because I appreciate that my camera is in the way at the moment. So, a note before we get on to the FA Cup. All of the fixtures that have been postponed or abandoned that you'll see on my screen here, they are all being played this Sunday, which has obviously had a big impact on the plate quarterfinals, the cup quarterfinals, and the league fixtures. Marcus, given the nonsense that the WNL enforced on Posh versus League at the end of last season, I'm more than happy that Posh might have played 15 games by the end of Jan. Yeah, I'm not surprised that you are, Marcus. I think there's a couple of examples. I think Forest against Halifax was one as well, where it had to be played at a neutral venue, wasn't it? But then, I mean, I'll ask a follow-up question to you there, Marcus. Are you slightly concerned about like competitive match fitness in the back end of the season possibly affecting chances in the title challenge? You might not be. It's just something that maybe consider if you haven't got a constant stream of competitive games, particularly with the Easter weekend and that kind of big towards the end of the season, having the Sunday games in the last few weeks of the season. You could have quite a period where you're only playing friendlies. Right, FA Cup then. Hull City against Middlesbrough. That one was postponed because of the weather. Accrington Stanley of Tier 6 losing to Huddersfield Town of Tier 2. Of Tier 4 by 2-1. Charlotte Stewart getting a brace in that game. One of the shocks of the round, Durham Sestra losing to Chester Street Town by 4-3 on a penalty shootout after a 1-1 draw. Daisy Clark with the goal for Durham Sestra, but they are out. Chester Street Town are through. Mancunian Unity 5, Handsworth 6, of Tier 5 and Tier 6. That's a 4-0 win for Mancunian Unity. Their great FA Cup run continues. Liverpool Feds, though, dominated over South Shields 11-0. A hat-trick for Katie Anderson and 2 for Courtney Willis, but then also 1 for Alicia Collins, Holly Deering, Olivia Francis, Emma Johnson, Rosie Kinvig, and Meg Boydell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different scorers for Liverpool Feds in that 11-0 victory. Burnley against Bradford City postponed, as was FC St Helens against Cheadle Town Stingers. Convincing victory for Wolverhampton Wanderers over Sporting Cowser by 8 goals to 1, 4-0 at half time, 2 for Amber Hughes, 2 for Destiny Touchant, 1 for Beth Merrick, Charlotte Greengrass, Jade Cross and Anya Denham. Sporting Cowser getting 1 15 minutes from time through Laura Smith. Stoke City against Loughborough postponed. Norwich City beating Leafield Athletic by a goal to nil. Norwich City, because of the way that the draw fell, Norwich City, the southern-based side that got put in the north, and Leafield Athletic, the unlucky side that had to go all the way to Norwich. Hope Strauss with the only goal of the game for Andy Cook's side. Rugby Borough beating Peterborough by 7 goals to 1. A hat-trick for Yasmin Mosby, 2 for May Moncaster, 1 for Nikki Potts and 1 for Jessica Camwell for Rugby Borough. Ella May Bale with the consolation for Peterborough in the 92nd minute. Then I mentioned it very briefly last night. The 1-1 draw between Kidderminster and Stourbridge. Kidderminster then winning 4-2 on penalties. Because it was only last night, the information isn't on full time yet. We'll let them off for that one. Shrewsbury Town of Tier 5 beating Sheffield of Tier 5 on penalties after a 3-3 draw. West Bromwich Albion convincing winners over Worcester City 6-0. 2 for Ian Oakley, 1 for Ella Hoffey, Simran Yamat and Marley Rhodes Andrews for West Brom. Long Itchington, still the lowest ranked side in the FA Cup because their game against Forest was postponed. Brentford beating London Seaward by a goal to nil. That is a big win for Brentford of Tier 6, beating, as I said, Tier 4 London Seaward. Move myself over here. Queen's Park Rangers 4, Saltdean United 5 was abandoned. Now, Queen's Park Rangers were 2-0 up in this game when a health and safety issue resulted in the game being abandoned. That health and safety issue was Storm Burt, meaning that the away dugout was no longer structurally sound. Let's put it that way. So that game is having to be played this weekend. And Ipswich Town beating #United on penalties after a 2-2 draw. 4-1 on penalties, that one was, and a late equaliser for Ipswich as well. Victoria Frank in the 5th minute put # in front. Maisie Barker equalised for Ipswich in the 38th. Holly Turner then put # back in front in the 73rd, and then Sophie Peskett in the 96th minute equalised for Ipswich Town, and they go through on penalties by 4 goals to 1. And then on the second page of results, Oxford United narrowly beating Watford by a goal to nil. Goal in that one to Vitalia Budlieva with 20 minutes to go. Aylesford 6, Worthing 4. Worthing needing a shootout to get past Aylesford. But it's 5-3 on penalties. No information on full time yet. I think that's probably because it was away at a Tier 6 side. London Bees 4, London Bees of Tier 4 against Chatham Town of Tier 4. They won that by 3 goals to 2. Goals in this one: Shamoy Campbell in the 10th minute, Chloe Tambula in the 45th, and Mira Hotiet in the 61st for London Bees. Lottie Sharp and Amelia Woodgate for Chatham Town, but it's London Bees who go through. All Tier 5 tie between Fulham and Royston Town finishes 4-3 to Fulham. Stevenage against Luton, another All Tier 5 tie postponed. Lewis 3, AFC Sudbury 0. Goals in this one. Lineup not yet announced from Lewis, so can't bring you that. Plymouth 1, Exeter City 5. Relatively local derby there. A brace for Sophie Gillies. 1 for Georgie Marie Barber Gresham, and it looks like 2 for Sarah Stacey. But with full time being full time, I will just check that for you. Looks like that might be the case. So it has only gone in once. So who knows? Who knows? Because it's full time. According to full time, Plymouth scored 5 and Exeter didn't. So who knows with that one? Charlotte Whitmore only getting the consolation goal for Plymouth towards the end there. Cheltenham Town beating Moneyfields by 2 goals to 1. Moneyfields had the lead in this game through Charlie Wilson-Wilton in the 49th minute. Fionn Llewellyn in the 78th. Una Liu in the 88th, meaning that Cheltenham go through. Marine Academy Plymouth just losing to Bristol Rovers by Well, I've got a goal to nil on there, but it says 4-0 on here. Megan Jarvis, well, okay, so it says 4-0. Megan Jarvis scored 4 goals, and Nia Rees got one apparently for Bristol Rovers. I'm pretty sure because I would have checked on Twitter before I made the graphic, but I will just check that for you because it's not beyond the realms of possibility that I have got that wrong. Oh no, they won 5-0. Okay, so it's a combination of everything. Okay, apologies for that one. Bristol Rovers then going through by 5 goals to nil. Gwalior United beating Bridgewater United by 4 goals to nil. A hat-trick for Corey Williams-Mills, 30th, 47th, 56th minute, and Jessie Rose-Taylor in the 92nd minute with the goals for Gwalior United. And finally, AFC Bournemouth winning away at AFC Portchester by 4 goals to nil, despite going down to 10. Molly Clark in the 8th minute, Chloe Gilroy in the 46th, Gemma McGuinness in the 47th and 57th minutes. Right, now, shall we get on, because it goes nicely into what I'm going to talk about now. We will talk about the 3rd round draw for the Women's FA Cup, because let's be honest, it didn't go all that well, did it? Before I get on to that, let's have a look at some of your comments. Oliver says Halifax Wolves in Ilkeston, and then Forest played Halifax in Shirebrook. Yes, they did. Marcus says we have a strong under-23 team. Can use some of our players to keep match fitness. Don't forget to hopefully have the points on the board. That's very true. Of the postponed, abandoned games, which ones will have the shock in them? Good question, Nick. Where will a shock come in these postponed or abandoned games? Well, that's an all Tier 5 tie between Stevenage and Luton, so you probably can't look there. If I move my camera into the middle, we can see all of the postponed games then. So, Hull City against Middlesbrough could. Middlesbrough, going relatively well in Tier 4. Hull City not doing amazingly in Tier 3, but that could be quite a close game. Burnley, you would think, wouldn't have a problem getting past Bradford City. You'd think Cheadle wouldn't have a problem getting past FC St Helens. Loughborough may do something against Stoke, going relatively well in Tier 4 again and towards the bottom of Tier 3 for Stoke. Although actually I think they're doing a lot better than that now. I might be doing Stoke quite a disservice there. I think they're up in 5th now, is it? Yeah, 5th. Apologies to Stoke fans. So I think, and then you've got Forest should get past Long Itchington. QPR you would think would get past Saltdean. That said, they were 2-0 up when that game was abandoned. So I think for me, Hull City against Middlesbrough is where the shock is most likely to come. So we'll see. Oliver, do you think Burnley will be able to make use of their games in hand to challenge Forest and Wolves? Yes, absolutely. I think it is very much going to be a three-way battle, Forest, Wolves and Burnley, right through to the end. May even be the final day of the season. So certainly Burnley will be able to use their games in hand against Forest and Wolves. Right, FA Cup 3rd round draw. We'll run through it, northern section and southern section. So in the north, it's Chester Street Town of Tier 5 hosting Stoke City or Loughborough. Kidderminster Harriers against Blackburn Rovers of the Championship. Wolves take on Shrewsbury Town of Tier 5. Liverpool Feds host Sheffield United. Newcastle host Hull City or Middlesbrough. West Bromwich Albion host FC St Helens or Cheadle Town Stingers. Birmingham City against Durham is an all-championship tie. Sunderland hosting Huddersfield Town of Tier 4. Rugby Borough get Mancunian Unity. That's a potential banana skin given how Mancunian Unity have been doing in the FA Cup so far this season. And Long Itchington or Nottingham Forest host Burnley or Bradford City. You would wager that that will be Forest against Burnley. So that one came out pretty quickly. Then the second half, the 3rd round draw. Ipswich Town against Bournemouth, this is the southern half. Portsmouth against Stevenage or Luton Town. London City Lionesses against Gwalior United. Brentford against Fulham, so we're guaranteed a Tier 5 side in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. Sorry, in the 4th round of the FA Cup, should I say. Oxford United against Bristol Rovers. Charlton Athletic against Lewes. Another all-championship tie of Southampton against Bristol City. Cheltenham Town against Norwich City, Exeter City take on Worthing, and London Bees take on QPR or Salt Dean United. Oliver, a lot of Forest fans are getting edgy about not being further away and losing sight of the fact there's such a gulfing class between Forest, Wolves, Burnley, and the bottom 7. I was thinking about this earlier on this week. For regular viewers of the show, you'll know I spent time with Cardiff City ladies, now Gwalior. Then I went to Nottingham Forest women, and I've commentated on Forest women in the cup final and the playoff final for BBC Radio Nottingham. I do not feel, as a Forest supporter, as comfortable as I did a couple of years ago when Forest won the league. My gut instinct is still that it will be a Wolves or a Burnley that win the league rather than a Forest, and I'm not entirely sure why my gut is telling me that, but I don't feel as comfortable as I did a couple of years ago. Right, Women's FA Cup third round. It was drawn on Instagram on Monday morning at 11 o'clock when everyone was at work on somebody's mobile with poor quality where you couldn't even see the balls that were coming out, and it's frozen buffered for the southern section, which meant nobody knew what was going on, and the teams were all sat around waiting for a graphic to come out to see what their draw was going to be. It didn't go all that well, did it? And to be honest, I think even if it had all gone fine, I still think Instagram is the wrong social media platform to do the draw on. If you're going to do it live, do it on YouTube, a bit like this show is. And I think 11 o'clock was a weird time to do it. Like, all of the draws in the FA Cups in the men's game are 7 o'clock. Yes, on a Monday, fine. Monday night, 7 o'clock, everyone's home from work, everyone gets around the TV. Who have we got? And it wasn't like that in this. For the first 2 rounds, it just comes out on at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock on the Monday, just as an article. No one gets to see a draw. The draw is only done properly once the championship sides come in, because that's when everybody starts caring. No, some people started caring back in August in the very, very first qualifying round. When clubs were picking up 1,800 quid for playing, those tier 7 clubs, some of us have cared since day one, not since the third round. Nick, what was worse was the meltdown by the hosts afterward after the criticism of the draw. #grow the game. Haven't actually looked at that. Haven't looked at socials. I looked for the first 10 minutes and then thought, right, I know I'm going to talk about this a lot on this week's show. And then I haven't looked at it again since. So, I'm not really sure. I mean, from the host's point of view, it's not the host's fault. It's just a weird way of doing it, and there is, and we use it quite a bit in the kind of the media industry. There is a thing called As Live, which we use quite a bit, and it says exactly what it says on the tin. It is a section that is recorded that goes out as live. I'll let you into a little secret. That's what the summer knockout tournament draws are on this show. They are as lives. I know they went out as recorded episodes before in the previous seasons, but if we carry on this live thing, they'll go out as lives, where you treat it live and you say, and you act like it's live. You don't do loads of takes. You do the draw properly, but then you record it and you edit it, and you can add fancy graphics in so that people, if they can't watch with the audio on, can still see the draw. Again, like I do on the summer knockout. Not trying to blow my own trumpet, but like I do on the summer knockout. And that way, it still goes out live. You can put it on YouTube at 7 o'clock, and everyone can watch it and everybody will see it. It will still feel like a live draw, but you know it's going to go out properly. You know it's going to be right. You've already done the draw. You've got your graphics ready. The graphic can go out immediately after the draw is done, straight away, not this everyone hanging around for half an hour for a graphic to be made situation. And that is how I think, if you If you want to do a live video draw, yes, go for it. Do it that way. Instagram is not the place to do it. It really isn't. For starters, you're doing it on your phone, so it's the wrong way. And yeah, I just don't think it's the way to do it. I think you've got to do it on YouTube if you're going to do it, and do it at a sensible time. Oliver says, "Well, that's my faith in humanity gone, Chris." Well, sorry about that, but yeah, it's a few tricks of the trade. Nicholas, there are rules around it, so you're not allowed to get this. Make sure I get this right. You're not allowed to say it's live if it's not, but you can act like it's live as long as you don't say that it's live, if that makes sense. Nicholas says, "Women's football chat to host the next draw of the FA Cup." Nick, we speak on almost a daily basis. I would love absolutely nothing more than to host the draw for the FA Cup. Absolutely. But if the call comes my way, I will jump at it. Will the call come my way? I doubt it, but we shall see. Right, let's move on and stop talking about things that went bad and talk about things that are coming up in the next 7 days of the FAWNL. We'll start in the Northern Premier Division. Just one game. Wolverhampton Wanderers against Derby County. If Wolves win that game, they will go top and be top at Christmas, because Forest do not have any more league games between now and Christmas with this cup postponement. So Wolves, if they win at home to Derby, Derby are currently down in 7th, then they will be top at the Christmas break. In the Southern Premier Division, we've got two fixtures. Exeter City against Billericay Town, that is 4th against 8th. But Billericay Town can jump up to 5th if they are to win away at Exeter. Ipswich Town, top of the table, they can go 3 points clear this weekend if they beat AFC Wimbledon, who are in 7th. In Division 1 Midlands, two games. Sutton Coldfield Town against Leafield Athletic. Sutton Coldfield are down there in 9th. Leafield Athletic 2nd, with Northampton Town not playing. Leafield could go top. Bournemouth St Michael's against Solihull Moors is 6th against 11th. With Bournemouth St Michael's able to climb up one place back above Notts County. Solihull Moors will be in the relegation zone come the end of the weekend, but this is one of their games in hand on Worcester City, so they'll be desperate to get 3 points in that game. Division 1 North, Huddersfield Town against AFC Fylde is 5th against 12th. Norton Stockton Ancients against Leeds United 6th against 2nd, and York City taking on Barnsley 11th against 8th. So Leeds can go top. Huddersfield can't really climb. They might go above Middlesbrough if they have a big win. Barnsley have an opportunity to go up 2 places, but we've said how tight Division 1 North is. This, as I said, Leeds United's game in hand on those guys in the likes of Cheadle, Chorley, Middlesbrough. So Leeds will want to put themselves 3 points clear at the top. York can climb. This is how mad Division 1 North is. If York City win at home to Barnsley, they will go from 11th to 6th with 1 win. That's how tight the bottom of Division 1 North is. Great league to keep an eye on throughout the rest of this season. In South East, London Bees against Chesham United, that is 7th against 10th, and London Seawood against Chatham Town, 11th against 3rd. So a couple of tough fixtures there. Chesham United going away to London Bees, probably the more likely of the two, of the ones towards the bottom there, to get themselves a point, maybe 3. London Seawood at home to Chatham Town is going to be a very difficult game for them. We mentioned it, I think, a couple of weeks ago on the show, that there is that mini league going on, Chesham, London Seawood and Ashford, and before Christmas there are those 2 games. Let me just check that for you so I make sure I get it right. So Chesham next week have Seawood, and then they have Ashford. So big opportunity for Chesham. You can imagine if Chesham get themselves 6 points from those 2 games, all of a sudden there's a 7-point gap between the bottom 2 and everybody else, and then you feel like South East may well be done. Southwest, 3 games. Bournemouth Sports against Bristol Rovers, 11th against 4th. Keynsham Town against Abingdon was meant to happen last weekend, got rained off. They've just pushed it forward to this weekend because both teams are free now with FA Cup difficulties elsewhere. So Keynsham in 5th, Abingdon are down in 9th, and Worthing against Maidenhead United. Worthing, the first side in Worthing's history, men or women's, in 137 years to make it to round 3 of the FA Cup. Worthing are in 8th in Division 1 Southwest. Maidenhead are in 6th. Big mid-table battle there. Bournemouth Sports, difficult home game for them against Bristol Rovers. Keynsham and Abingdon. Abingdon will be looking to increase that gap, but Keynsham having a good season, so won't make it easy for them. So those are the league fixtures. Marcus says, as live, I'm all for it, even if it improves the viewing spectacle. So the thing with as live is that, as far as anybody knows, it's live. Nobody outside of the core FA team, i.e. those doing the draw and those that are doing the cameras and then the editing for the draw, will know what it is. And you can all sign, non-disclosure agreements if you want to, up until like 7 o'clock or whatever. You then know that the video works properly. You can upload it ahead of time, so all you have to do is press play, and you can even schedule it if you want to. And then you can make graphics, so you can say, here's the ball numbers, because at no point, if you missed at the start where they said these are all the ball numbers, you've got no idea who's where if you've missed the web article as well. So you can see that down the side. You can see them coming up along the bottom. You can then, if you really wanted to go for it, because you know exactly how long the video is, you could even schedule the tweet with the graphic with all of the fixtures on for the exact time, or like 2 minutes later that it finishes, and then you can all go home and just enjoy a lovely cup of tea, and it will all take care of yourself. I genuinely can't wait for January the 5th. It's going to be a massive day for our season. That's Forest against Wolves, and I bet you are. Right, let's then just finish off with the fixtures coming up. So now is a great time to say, if you have any further comments or questions or anything like that regarding the last 7 days of FAWNL football or anything coming up, then now is the time to get them in to the live chat on YouTube, and that is where I will then see them. So once I've gone through these last few fixtures, I'll have a look at any further questions, and then we'll wrap up for this week. So we're going to go to the FAWNL Cup and Plate quarterfinals. Now, some of these have been pushed back through club choice, and a couple, and one of them because of cup. So FAWNL Cup quarter-final. The 2 Southern games are happening this weekend. Hashtag United of Tier 3 against Real Bedford of Tier 4. That's what's second in Tier 3 against top of Tier 4. Plymouth Argyle against Watford, both Southern Premier Division sides. The 2 Northern games, you've got Burnley against Stoke. You've got Middlesbrough against Forest. The Burnley game is happening at Turf Moor on the 14th. The Middlesbrough Forest game is happening on the 15th. So the way that the semi-finals could well shape up in the Cup, you could have Forest and Watford, who were the finalists from 2 years ago, Forest winning that in extra time. You can have hashtag